Welcome to this episode of One World, One Fight Leadership Interview Series. It's a pleasure to have Mr. Jagdanand, an eminent civil society thought leader. He is mentor and co-founder of Center for Youth and Social Development, or CYSD. He is also the president of National Social Watch, NSW, a broad-based coalition of civil society organizations. Mr. Jagdanand is also a former Information Commissioner of Odisha Information Commission. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. You have been working with a broad spectrum of civil society organizations and also the government, including Niti Aayog. How do you assess our response to the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think at this point of time, this COVID-19 pandemic has really created a kind of possibility and platform for civil society across the country to come forward with their limited resources, with their limited capacity, with all that they have to offer help to fellow citizens. And this has really been an amazing experience during the last 5 months. In CYST, my organization in Odisha, we are doing two things at the same time. One is we are, in the first month, we started doing relief work with those families, those communities who are normally left out from the provisions of social security, food security, and all that, reaching them. And the second part was creating a kind of citizen support center, which was a virtual hub in which anyone in this distress can call the center and then information is provided. And if they need further support in terms of socio-psycho counseling or psychosocial support, that should be given. And then if they also need any health-related advisory, they can be linked to the health-related professionals. So this kind of work was supplementing the government work. And then a lot of people, especially the migrants who wanted to come to Odisha, our Odia migrants all around the country, wherever they are, they were desperate and reaching the Citizen Support Center for guidance, for advice, for support, and for, really hand-holding them to come back to the state so that they can, safely reach their home. That is one part. The second part, what we are doing was creating the citizen groups together so that we can at least identify some of the work which needs to be done by the government, and then giving the feedback, giving suggestions, giving, what you call advisories to the government of what they should be doing and how they should reach, and the what you call deficit areas which are necessary to be reached, both at the state level as well as at the Government of India level. At the Government of India level, Niti Aayog definitely came forward, created a kind of platform, and in the CSO Standing Committee, we had 4 rounds of meetings actually during this pandemic. One round was with the High Power Committee, which consists of Niti Aayog, Cabinet Secretariat, Ministry of Home, Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of Health, and and the National Disaster Management Authority. Then we had an exclusive meeting with the Health Department at the level of the Secretary, Union Secretary, and the Additional Secretary, Joint Secretary. They were all there together. And we did discuss what are the problems which are arising at the ground zero around this pandemic, which can be done. And then it was followed up with the Health Minister itself. And then subsequently at NITI, we had several rounds of meeting to identify what are the problems and how do we deal with the problems. And then there was a kind of direct relationship which was established. So civil society, I think it was a great challenge for civil society, and civil society has responded to the challenge very well. And
yes, sir, I must say that it's a wonderful initiative, like reaching out to the marginalized, the tribals. That's actually a wonderful initiative. The pandemic has increased the divide between the privileged and underprivileged even more. What are the lessons for bridging the gap?
I think at this point of time, during the pandemic, we realized that there is a big chunk of the population who are devoid of their entitlements, like social security benefits, food security benefits, like National Food Security Act, does provide an opportunity for people below poverty line to get their rations. And there are people who are below poverty line or like below poverty line, but they're not included. So that means identifying them and ensuring that everyone who is eligible to access national food security is provided the food security benefits. Similarly, social security. There are still people who require some support, like women-headed households, differently abled headed households, widow-headed households, transgender, community. There are people who are even senior citizens, and there is no dependent on which they can really depend on. So, so now these communities, they require a special care, and government has all the provisions and all the possibilities. Now, so therefore, the role of civil society is, how do you ensure that these people who are already excluded are included in the system? That is one lesson which I learned, and we have been doing it, but during this pandemic, this problem was exposed. The second issue which we learned, the role of the panchayats, the local government. At the local government level, if planning is done well, local governments coming together, then the planning is an inclusive planning. Today the planning is exclusive planning. So therefore, the divide between rich and poor, the divide between those who have houses, good houses to live, those who do not have a proper house even to take shelter, exist. So how do you really bridge this gap? If at the panchayat level, the local planning identifies those families, identifies their problems, identifies their issues, and then create some opportunity for them, create provisions for them, I'm sure things will start improving actually. And then the third area where I picked up a lot of, third area which I picked up was creating. If the livelihood opportunities are not there, government cannot feed everybody. Government cannot reach every time everyone. So you have to have a sustainable, decent way of living actually. So therefore, and then people depend, like in Odisha where I work, we have people who depend on agriculture, and then there are people who depend on forest and forest resources. So forest dependent poor, how do you deal with them? How do you create, good marketing facilities so that the minor forest produce, which they pick up, are processed, value added and marketed, and they get a good income out of it. Similarly, agriculture workers, small, farmers, smallholder farmers, marginal farmers, these farmers, they require what you call clear handholding support and a bit of support also on marketing. Yes. But despite the fact that we have a minimum support price guaranteed for farmers, we have a minimum procurement price guaranteed for Adivasis who depend on forests for their minor forest produce, or that kind of products like tamarind, like hill brooms, hill grass, and like millets, all that. But the minimum procurement price, many times they do not reach the poor actually. The minimum support price, sometimes small farmers are not able to access that. So I think that is another area where we have to, what you call scale up our work. We have to scale up our intervention so that we can do that.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, COVID-19 has definitely come up as a challenge. How can we turn this challenge as an opportunity to pursue sustainable development and natural resource management?
You see, you are absolutely right. COVID-19 has certainly opened the society. Everybody from rich to poor, from villages to the cities, from local government to the parliament, everyone was second up actually. And from civil society to market players, market actors, everyone is now worried what is the future of the society actually. So this is a great opportunity to really revisit the Gandhian model of economy, I would say. And that is where civil society has a big role. What Gandhiji had said? Gandhiji had said, we don't need mass production, we need production by the masses actually. That means in the village, if there is something which is available, and then it can be processed in the village itself at the panchayat level. It can be value added, and then it can be used in the panchayat, and the surplus is sent to outside. That builds up a kind of self-reliant economy actually. And so the call which Prime Minister has given, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, is only possible if there is Atmanirbhar Panchayat actually. And today Atmanirbhar Panchayat is the foundation and the bedrock on which sustainable development, is grounded actually. And if we are able to manage our known natural resources, if we are able to get into a kind of collective way of processing that, we are able to equate between men and women, between haves and have-nots, and create that kind of feeling at the village level, then, that is one way of handling what you call sustainable development. And second, sustainable development goals and sustainable development attempts requires some focus on education, health, water, sanitation, the basic needs of the people. And that is a governmental affair. Government, is mandated to really reach people and meet the basic needs of its citizens. So now the question is, today there are villages, even they do not have drinking water. Today there are villages who have to walk miles to access public health. And yet public health is denied to them. By the time they reach the hospital, maybe the doctor is not there. So COVID-19 has exposed the cracks in our basic needs delivery system actually, be it education, be it health, be it water, be it sanitation. So since the cracks are now known, and everybody is now desperate that society must be, what you call, we have to come back to normalcy, right? Or we have to, maybe sometimes we think we have to live with something like COVID, corona issue alive actually, because we don't know when we are going to get rid of this problem. But if we have to live with this or without this, we have to definitely fix the education system. We have to definitely fix the health system. We have to definitely fix the drinking water sanitation system. And we have to fix the agriculture, forestry management system. And there civil society's role is critical. Right? And if we are not able to bring, if you ask me, what is the critical role of civil society? The role of civil society is to bring innovations to complex issues of poverty, underdevelopment, to facilitate interaction between fragmented communities, men, women, sitting together, discussing together, Adivasis, mainstream population, Dalits, and the mainstream, they sit together, identify their problem, deal with that, facilitating interaction. And then the third role of civil society is influencing the policies. So therefore, we need to, if we really respond to this challenge, we have to bring innovative experiments and pilots in our operational areas so that we are able to demonstrate that those pilots really deliver something in a small scale, and then government is supposed to take it forward and multiply those pilots in a big way. We have to speed up our work. We have to expand our work in facilitating interaction between fragmented communities so that the community as a whole, they are able to think through how to maintain a lifestyle which is sustainable. How to look at our managing natural resources, how to look at, monitoring the services of the government. That means, not remain as passive citizens, but as active citizens, actually. How do you do that? How do you promote active citizenship amongst the youngsters, especially, so that they come forward? And then influence the policies wherever it needs to be influenced.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And as you mentioned, we are not getting rid of this virus anytime soon. So since we may have to live with this virus for a long time, how should the NGO sector prepare for the future?
I think by now the sector has almost joined as COVID warriors, actually, right? Whether we get the recognition as COVID warriors or not, I would say we are COVID warriors. So therefore, like many of my colleagues in CYST, they don't care what is happening. They have a mask, they maintain social distance, they have sanitizers, but they are deep in the community actually. They're not scared, they're not staying at home. They're in the outreach areas. And today, beyond COVID, in one of our districts, there is a flood now, and big flood. So my colleagues are all there actually. So because we have given the mandate to ourselves, we are self-mandated volunteers, self-mandated active citizens who have joined hands with each other for a cause. I can tell you, one of the challenges, how do we maintain the sanity at our end? How do we become role models as COVID warriors? And then spread this message through the multiple volunteers we have created at the community end. Whether they are villages, urban slums in the cities, there are plenty of volunteers we have created. Community resource persons we have created. Men and women, and bulk of them are women actually. The savings credit group leaders, the community organization leaders, the village development committee functionaries, each one of them, who have gone through a process of our social mobilization, are all very clear, and they are also mandated to take this message forward of how do you really save yourself from the COVID menace, and then yet do your work, whether it's livelihood promotion, because agriculture work, you have to do it. Agriculture is a season. You can't stay at home and agriculture is not going to happen automatically. So therefore, you have to really play that role in a very big way, and forest collection. So livelihood things will continue, and we will do that. And then the third area is, I think these migrants who have returned now, a lot of them would require reskilling actually. A lot of them may like to stay back in their own villages because they have seen how the world has treated them, how their old employers have treated them. In a crisis, everybody left their hand and they were left to themselves. So they had to walk, they had to cycle, they have to do all those difficulties actually. So many of them, because of that very bad experience, they may like to stay back in their villages. So therefore, one of the challenges for our sector is how do we really revitalize the rural economy so that there.
Yes, sir. How has CYSD responded to the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think in CYSD, from day one itself, we decided that this is a great opportunity for us to respond. So during the lockdown, shutdown, and even containment, Bhubaneswar was shut down actually. During that time, we decided that we must reach those vulnerable segment of the society, whether they're in the city slums or in the villages, with survival materials so that there is no distress in the society. But we have a limitation. We can't reach everyone. So we decided, we prioritized actually. We said all women-headed households who are struggling for a decent survival, like domestic workers, like Safai Karmacharis, like, what you call daily wage laborers, migrant laborers who come to the cities. We identified them and tried to reach them actually. And we could reach in the first phase through a survival kit almost about 10,000 families. And 10,000 families, into each family, if you add 4 to 5 dependents, almost about 50,000 people actually. And 50,000 people in remote areas is not a joke actually. So I'm delighted that CYST could reach them. And that is one thing we did. The second thing, we were also very keen and we collaborated with Humanitarian Aid International. And with their collaboration, we said, let us use the digital technology like drones. So how do you use drones in disinfecting the city streets, the city neighborhoods? And how do you spread the message to the public about public awareness? So we use the drones for doing that. As you know, we provided assistance to panchayats to play their role very, very clearly, very appropriately. And that was a very good, in our partnership with panchayats, local governments could run many quarantine centers very well, COVID care centers very well indeed. And now we are working on supporting workers, migrant workers and other rural workers who would like to have MGNREGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. So that was something which was necessary. If somebody doesn't have a job card, you give them a job card. Somebody has a job card, doesn't get the work, you help him or her to get the work. And then if there are problems with wage payment, you ensure that the wage comes in time. So real supporting the MGNREGA workers and forest dependent workers. Then the other problem which we faced, there were a lot of farmers and producers who were not able to sell their products actually. And vegetables and farm products are perishable, so they cannot stay indefinitely. So we arranged with the district administration, organized lorries transport facilities so that they were brought from the villages with their products, and with special permission of the district administration, marketing channels were opened so that they could sell their products actually. So there was a range of work which we have been doing, and it has been a very satisfying experience during this pandemic. And I'm sure we are now getting ready for livelihood restoration work in a big way in COVID CYST work in version 0.2.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I must appreciate the fact that CYST, along with other things, is also putting emphasis on people's emotional health, mental health. That's very important. Sir, thank you very much for sharing your insightful thoughts. Thank you for your time. It has been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.